Hello and welcome. My name is Lexi and today we're talking about what I consider to be the worst products in the luxury beauty community for 2023. So these are what I consider to be an actual fail. So I'm not talking about just the disappointing products that I thought were just okay, but I wouldn't pick up again. These are the ones that I think are really bad and they won't work for most people. Now, of course, everything varies. So, perhaps there are people who absolutely love some of the things that I really do not. But we're going to go through those. We're also going to talk about a few brands who I feel like they've been pretty disappointing this year overall. And I don't know, we'll have to see if they can get some new life in them next year. So let's start off with my fails. And we are going to start off with the Rabanne foundation. This is a Fresh Touch foundation. I have shade 00N here. This is one that you need to shake. It does separate very quickly. And this is actually so bad for most people that they pulled it from the market. They are reformulating, so hopefully the new version will be better. But this is a you can hear it. You can hear how thin the liquid is. It's a very thin textured serum foundation. And it ended up just kind of being like a bit of a greasy mess after a while. This color 00N is the lightest. It's way too dark for me. And I mean, look at the texture of this. So it's very, very thin, watery like, yet also has some oil in there. And it looks like it separates on the skin. That was my issue with it, is that, as I mentioned, it separates very easily in the tube. It also appeared to be separating on my skin while wearing it. It was just honestly a terrible foundation. The shade made me look like an Oompa Loompa. So it was just overall not good. So again, they have pulled this from the market and they are reformulating. So hopefully the new version will be better, but the 2023 version was not good. Now, I also wanted to bring up the new Givenchy Intense Silk lipsticks, which I love the actual lipsticks. The actual formula is nice, but I find I don't use them because this has happened to two of the ones I purchased. The packaging is terrible. So you can see my bullet is stuck in there. It's not stuck in there because it got like twisted up or anything. It is locked in there because this piece does not clip in properly to the component. And I actually contacted the place I ordered them from. I ordered them from Feel Unique, contacted Givenchy. I never got a response from Givenchy. Feel Unique did respond and basically said it wasn't their problem and I should contact the manufacturer. So, it was just very, very disappointing because now I have certain shades. In order to get these out, I actually keep a pair of tweezers here and I have to pull this out with the tweezers. And you can see that it is the color itself, the lipstick is fully intact, no issues. So it's just faulty packaging. So this packaging on the Givenchy lipsticks gets a fail. Now, they have similar packaging on their deep velvets and their sheer velvets, but I've never had this happen to me before. Now, out of all the new ones that I purchased, 2 or 3 of them were already like this, and it didn't take that long. So, see, it already just fell out. So it's terrible. Now, before anybody says, it's just not being clipped in properly. So this is it. This is not clipped in, right? But you can hear that snap when it clips in. So I am 100% sure that it is snapping in. It feels sturdy like this. And then I go put it in the drawer and it ends up coming apart within the next use or two. So very, very frustrating. Next, this is a fail for me, but I know it's not a fail for everybody. There are people who absolutely love these, but they are the Chanel loose powder eyeshadows. And, the product itself, I agree, you can make a nice look with these. The colors are nice, but I feel like this is just unnecessary. And it's very messy, particularly with the deeper colors. And, I don't know, to me, this just, I just don't love it. I think this was a waste of money for me. So this one here is shade 414. And you can see this is a really deep purple. The color is great. Application's messy because of this, application method. You get like fallout and so forth. Are these totally usable? The powders and so forth in here? Yes. If you have used loose powder eyeshadows, which I used to do for many years, having them in a little like pot, dipping a brush in, I think was less messy than using this kind of applicator. But, this is definitely one that I know a lot of people do really like. But for me, it was a total fail. I'd rather just have a pressed eyeshadow. Or if I was going to have loose, I'd rather it be in your traditional little pots, perhaps even with like a sifter or something for some of the deeper colors. So I just think that these are a not so great product for the masses. Yes, there are going to be individuals who love them, individuals who get them to work very well, but I don't want to spend the extra time to get this to look nice. You can see just using that, how much little like fallout there is on the edges here, just from the swatch. And, you just have to be so cautious with those to get such a beautiful application, in my opinion, that for me, it's not worth the extra time. I'd rather have a pressed shadow. And if I was going to use a loose powder, I prefer it in a little pot where I can dip a brush in more easily, knock off the excess. This applicator sponge, it's a little bit messier. Plus the pigment kind of gathers up here on the ledge. So even when you like knock it off, this opening here is so small that you're going to make a mess on your vanity or whatever it is you're doing your makeup over. Speaking of that, I have my list here and there's a mess now. Next up, we have the Tom Ford quads in Dark Opulence and Ambrosia. Okay, I have to say, these are not the worst of the worst, but they're not great. And for the price point, I was expecting a different formula. I was hoping this would be a bit nicer than it is. They're just not great. So you can see here that even this metallic teal here, see how sheer it is versus how much deeper it is here. The pigmentation on this, it can be pretty patchy for both of the quads. Both the mattes, the shimmers, like this pink one here, this can be a very patchy shade. So I just feel like, again, like the Chanel, you can use these and get a beautiful look, but it's very finicky. It takes a lot of extra effort and steps. And for these price points, I'm personally looking for something a little bit easier to use. So I feel like these two quads from Tom Ford in particular, not good. All right, next up, I know this is another one that's going to be controversial. These are the Westman Atelier Super Loaded Liquid Tinted Highlighters. I picked up all three of these. I was very excited for them because I do love the cream version of the Super Loaded Tinted Highlighters. This is much more like her, face liquid foundation that she has. You do need to shake these. They are oil-based. And, I just find them not to be worth it. And they're too oily for me. So I have normal balanced skin that leans slightly dry. And these are too oily for me because, if I use just a little bit, not a problem. If I tap a little under my eyes and then add foundation, depending on the weather and, humidity and so forth, probably okay throughout the day. But if I tap it on as a highlighter on top, or, I'm using this, in larger quantities on my face, the oil it just becomes so obvious. It becomes greasy. It doesn't stay put. This never dries down. That's the biggest problem with that. This is a product that in order for me to use, because of that oily base, and because of the fact that it doesn't dry down, I have to use this under foundation. And then putting foundation on top of it, I'd be very careful to make sure that I am not moving the product when I am applying the foundation. So again, another thing that I wasted my money on. And yeah, I don't love these. Honestly, after this year, I'm doing a deep clean. I'm getting rid of everything that I don't love, including these things here today. These are going. I've actually been keeping them in a box all year just so they don't waste space. Most of these items, at least. Next up, I tried Louboutin makeup for the first time this year, and I tried these matte liquid lipsticks, and they're terrible. They're dry and uncomfortable on the lips. They have kind of a chalky appearance, and yeah, I really did not like these. So these, total waste. But I was like, okay, I'll give the brand another try because I've heard great things about some of their, other eyeshadow palettes, the cheek palettes and so forth. I had never tried them before. Or was it eyeshadow? It was eyeshadow, I think. But they have duos now. So I tried these, and I have to say, it is not the worst palette in the world or anything like that. The formulas are okay. They're both kind of sheer in this particular color story, but they're okay. My issue with this is they're just performance on these. They don't last all day without creasing, which most powder shadows do. I find the color story in this one in particular, aside from being misleading from website photos, which we see all the time, these shades are both on the more sheer side, so it's hard to get a lot of variety with the looks. And again, the formula is nothing stellar, definitely nothing that warrants a price tag, in my opinion. Again, that's going to be a personal opinion, but I just thought that these are very, very below average. Now, when I tried the eyeshadow palette, I also picked up one of the lipsticks, and just like the liquid, and this is a travel size one, dry and chalky on the lips. It's uncomfortable. So perhaps there's an ingredient that doesn't work for me in these that is making these so uncomfortable for me on the lips, but they really do kind of end up, making my lips kind of dry and chapped by the time I remove it. So definitely not a fan. If you're interested in this color though, this is the Milky Light shade. So nice shade, but I did not like this formula. And last up for my fails, the Hourglass lipsticks. I know so many people really like these. And I do like some cream style lipsticks. Typically, I prefer lipsticks with a bit more of a sheen, but I do like some creams. The Bobbi Brown Luxe ones are nice. We've got some Estee Lauder ones that are nice. These Hourglass ones, I was really looking forward to them. This is the shade Tide. But again, on my lips, these ended up looking a bit dry. I don't like the packaging because you have to be, you have to close it just right, even though it looks like it's a square. It only goes in one way. So I just find these, again, they feel a little, like if you ever used to use the natural makeup when it first came out, like in the 90s, early 2000s, when you were seeing it and you were able to find it like at health food stores, not even like at Sephora and stuff. Some of those formulas, that's what this reminds me of. It's kind of that drier, chalkier, clean beauty kind of lipstick. I've seen it look beautiful on other people, but on me, it just does not work with my lip chemistry. So again, for me, these are kind of dry and chalky looking on the lips, and they feel a little thick. I don't care for the texture. So those are it for the items that I disliked the absolute most this year, things that I consider absolute fails. But we did have some disappointing collections and items throughout the year, and I do want to kind of address those brands as well. So I did already mention Chanel. This had a disappointing product, but overall, Chanel this year has been fairly disappointing. The launches have been kind of a mess. We've seen things leaked from retailers early. Certain items have been really hard to get. They've had some really nice items like the Fantasy de Chanel blush and so forth. But the majority of the items that they released this year were just more shades of warm reds and pinks, kind of like they're using up the pigments that they had already purchased or something. And, some of the textures and so forth, just not so great. Very average, very mediocre. Things kind of seem like a slightly modified re-promote. I feel like they just were not well thought out. Now, we do have a new team in place at Chanel, And the makeup artists who make up that team, if you have followed any of them or, for any time, they're very edgy, exciting. They all have kind of some different aesthetics and so forth. And I'm very curious to see where they lead Chanel in the new year. So I'm looking forward to that. Definitely giving Chanel another chance. Again, they had some solid products, but most of them, again, were just very similar to previous items that were launched. We had some not so great textures as well. We all know that their blushes that they reformulated last year were not so great. So that kind of seems to be a recurring theme here, which brings us to the next disappointing brand. And that would be Dior. So Dior has reformulated their eyeshadows this year. This one is Plum Tulle. And then they also reformulate their powder blushes and in the Rouge line. And I have to say the backstage reformulations so far have gone pretty smoothly. But the ones in the Rouge line, not so great. So the blushes, kind of like the Chanel blush reformulation. These are kind of dry. They get hard pan easily. They just don't look as good on the skin. It can be hard to get the pigmentation up. I actually find the Chanel is easier to get more pigmentation from than the Dior. But both are not great. The eyeshadows, they can be a little patchy now. Some of them are good. Some of them are bad. It's kind of hit or miss. But, we're relying more on some matte velvet textures, which were not that great from Dior in the first place. And they did remove talc. Things are not quite as smooth. So again, patchiness can be an issue with those. So now, unfortunately, Dior is reformulating their lip products this year, at least the lipsticks in the Rouge line. So we'll have to see how that goes. So far, these powder product reformulations, they seem to be primarily not so great because there hasn't been a great talc substitute for these brands. They have not figured out a way to make a talc-free product that's a bit smoother. That's my interpretation of it so far. But we'll have to see what happens with the lipsticks. So I'm a little nervous about that, but we'll be testing those out. Unfortunately, though, usually Dior has some products on my favorites lists for the year, particularly in the eyeshadow category. And, I'm not going to be picking up too many of them with this formula. Fantastic color stories, sure. But the nice looking palette that looks nice, but not necessarily super exciting, I'm going to be passing on now just because this formula is just not up to standards, in my opinion. Another brand that has sort of been resting on its laurels would be Chantecaille. So they've had some really great collections this year, such as the holiday. I think that was a nice collection. We had some really, the glow powder, I think, was fantastic from that collection. And, unfortunately, though, my biggest complaint with Chantecaille was this was their big anniversary year. And they didn't really have any sort of wow collection for the anniversary. No really new, incredibly exciting products. Unfortunately, they did a lot of re-promotes. Like this collection from the summer, this could have been really exciting. The Cosmos collection, they have beautiful packaging, but unfortunately the contents were re-promotes. Even with the holiday collection, we had some, the lip gloss was a re-promote. The eyeshadow, they brought back a color that was gone for years, which is nice to know. It's nice to do that, but I think that should be celebrated. This could have been an opportunity, even if they were going to do a lot of re-promotes, make it a year celebrating classics, bestsellers from Chantecaille, put those in special packaging for an anniversary collection. So I feel like it was a missed opportunity. And unfortunately, we ended up with some lackluster collections. The fall collection had these really beautiful luminescent eye shades. Unfortunately, they all skewed a lot warmer than they looked online. And again, we're seeing that with pretty much every brand. Most brands seem to do that with the photography. But, I just feel like on a brand where we're already starting to kind of see a lack, in my opinion, a lack of effort to be new and exciting, that just kind of adds to it and is a little bit more detrimental to a brand like that versus a brand that's going to have more exciting releases, really amazing products where things like that are more easily overlooked. So those are my opinions and my thoughts on it. But unfortunately, those three brands are kind of on my watch list for the next year to kind of see how things go. For a while in the past, I had written off Dior and I didn't purchase Dior products aside from their lip products because I didn't like the formulas. And unfortunately, it looks like we're going that way. Chanel, I'm definitely excited to see the new team. We'll give them a chance and see how that goes. But I'm not at the point where I plan on picking up everything from the collections anymore. And Chantecaille, same thing. It's like you always have to hunt and search to see whether something's a re-promote. Sometimes they don't tell you and you have to buy it and then you find out it's a re-promote. And that's what's so disappointing with these brands, in my opinion. It's the lack of transparency. So I'd love to know, what were the things that really annoyed you this year? What products really didn't work for you? Please share down below in the comments. That way everybody can kind of, get some feedback on some products. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you have a happy holiday season. Thanks for watching.